Am I the a-hole for walking out of my husband's birthday party after she started laughing at me? I, female 32, just completed my treatment for a medical issue that affected my body. I had gained weight due to this medical condition and also medication, and none of my old clothes were fitting anymore. I bought new fitting clothes, but for my husband's birthday party, he asked me to wear one of my old dresses that was one of his favorites. To appease him, I said yes, although I didn't feel comfortable wearing it, especially after the weight gain. He was at the restaurant with his family and friends when I arrived with my sister, and as soon as he saw me walking in, he busted out laughing. Then he pointed at the dress and was going hysterical, saying, "Oh my God." I felt so incredibly mad, especially when the others started laughing as well. One of his friends started whistling in a mocking tone. I turned around instantly and walked out, and my sister followed me. I went home and cried a little, but he kept calling nonstop. He came home and started talking about how oversensitive I was, and that it was just a natural reaction he had upon seeing me in this dress again after all this time. He said I overreacted and made a scene over nothing. He also said I ruined his birthday and urged me to get therapy for this oversensitivity that I'm inflicting upon him. Am I the a-hole? Did I overreact? He's so upset he refused to even receive the gift. Edit. I need to explain the way he laughed more. He first started giggling and tried to cover his mouth. Then, in a matter of seconds, he busted out laughing. In the middle of the restaurant. The guests were confused. Then they must have understood why he was laughing because they joined in. And his friend whistled at me mockingly while repeatedly turning his head like something caught his attention. Could it be that I overreacted? It could be just me getting overwhelmed because joking and laughing is not new when it comes to him. He's the kind to tease about any and everything, even with my family. The kids too. He also said it was caught off guard, and so I shouldn't blame him for his reaction. Now for the top comments. He pushed you to wear the dress even though you didn't want to. He made fun of you when you wore said dress. He stood by as you were publicly humiliated. He didn't follow you when you walked out and belittled your feelings. He told you to go to therapy, not so that you're happier, but so you can stop annoying him. He tears you down physically and emotionally. He denies any wrongdoing and blames only you. Why are you with him? Not the a-hole. He told you to go to therapy, not so that you're happier, but so you can stop annoying him. That is the standout. Please read the above post again. Look at the way he is actually treating you, not the way he says he does. You did not overreact. He sounds like a gaslighting a-hole, not the a-hole. You're just being too sensitive is a common defense bullies use when they are called out on their behavior. OP, you're not the a-hole. My mother-in-law loves this one. Only just recently got my partner to stop using it. It's only a joke when both people find it funny. Otherwise, you're just an a-hole. Not the a-hole. The absolute freaking nerve of this guy making you put on a dress that you don't feel comfortable in, and then laughing and pointing at you in public, in front of his friends and family. That was intentional, and it was cruel. Please take it as the wake-up call you need. Don't stay married to this dude. Not a-hole. Hope he doesn't overreact when you serve this a-hole with divorce papers. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my niece my husband and I are not going to her birthday because my husband isn't welcome? I have been with my husband for 10 years. We have been married for 5 of those years. He has suffered horrific trauma at the hands of his dad. His parents were married and expecting twins, when his mom suffered some kind of hemorrhage and she ended up with eclampsia. My husband's mom and twin sister didn't make it, but my husband did after a period of time in the NICU. His dad told him it was his fault they died. He had grandparents who meant the world to him and tried to shield him from his dad's anger, but when he was 8 years old, they passed away too. His father then blamed him, and he spent the next 10 years hearing day after day that he was the reason. At no point did he have another person to reassure him it wasn't. When we met, he had just started to heal. He was away from his dad and attending therapy. It was a very big fear of his that what his dad said was true. He is a wonderful man, and my nieces and nephews adore him. He was always so good with them and the rest of my family. In January 2020, I was pregnant and we went for a scan, where we learned I had miscarried. As soon as my husband heard this, something inside of him broke. He started to unravel. He was in the middle of a mental health crisis. He was doing this weird manic laugh that was also a sob. He ran out of the room and I followed after him, concerned. My mom and sister both work at a hospital, Sister's a nurse while mom worked in the little gift store, and both saw him in his worst moment. They saw his medical personnel were forced to intervene because he was in the middle of a breakdown, hysterical and totally out of it. He was totally broken and nothing could reach him. It was the scariest moment of my life and the worst moment of his. And they judged him for laughing. Then when they told the rest of the adults in my family, they also judged him. All of my family were aware of his history. He told them about it years ago. My husband ended up under the care of a psychiatrist who suggested he needed a lot more help than therapy could provide. Instead of understanding, my family no longer wanted him around. They said a man who could laugh at his own wife's miscarriage was not the kind of man they wanted around kids. I told them I would not leave him behind. Now, my niece is turning 12 this year and is having her first big party since COVID. She called and said she wanted us there, but she hadn't seen us on her mom's list. I told her we wouldn't be able to come and that I was sorry. We both were. She was upset and asked why she never saw us, why we wouldn't come to her birthday party, why we missed them all now. So I told her that my husband was not welcome by the other adults in the family anymore. She apparently yelled at her parents and mine. Then I got grief from them for telling her what I did. They said I had no business saying that. Am I the a-hole? They said I had no business saying that. And they have no business being utter trash to your husband after his mental health crisis. Not the a-hole, but boy oh boy are your family. More like, you had no business telling the truth. Now we look bad and we are supposed to be the victims because you chose your husband over us. For a nurse to do that to her own sister and brother-in-law makes me think that she never liked him and she used this. You'd be surprised how many people in healthcare have warped, stigmatized, / biased views still and are blind to it. It's a lot of them. It took me 5 years once I knew I needed medication to actually get on it. And before then, I thought it meant I was weak. OP, I'm so sorry that your family lacked the compassion you and your husband need. You did nothing wrong. They are upset that the truth of what they did makes them look bad. Because they know they're wrong but won't fix it. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I respect you for standing with your husband. That was the right move. If they won't welcome both of you, then neither of you attend. As far as telling your niece the truth, I agree with that too. You have nothing to hide. There was nothing inappropriate about revealing this to her. And it sounds like you kept the explanation short. I did. I told her none of what happened. Just that he was no longer welcome. Holy heck, not the a-hole. So much not the a-hole. I am so sorry you and your husband lost your child like that. And I'm so sorry, especially for your husband. That must have opened fresh wounds. The scarring on that is deep and concerning. No, I don't think you and your husband should be surrounded by people who totally judged him based on an extreme vulnerable moment in both of your lives. His mental health comes first. I hope you and him are doing better. He blamed himself. The moment he heard our baby had no heartbeat, he believed it was all because of him. Again. That still haunts us. He doesn't even remember what happened after hearing the words. Next story. Am I the a-hole for having my daughter's first birthday the same day as my stepsister's wedding? My mom got remarried after my parents' divorce, and her new husband brought along my stepsister. I lived with my dad mostly because I did not want anything to do with a new sibling and had pretty much no relationship with her and hated that my mom treated her like a daughter. I wasn't the nicest to her, but I felt like she was taking my place. Fast forward to now, she's getting married and I wasn't invited since we have no relationship. Whatever, I didn't invite her to mine either. This issue is I planned my daughter's first birthday. And when I told my mom, she said it can't be that day because it's my stepsister's wedding. And can we change it to the next weekend so people don't have to choose which to go to? I said no. My stepsister's wedding is at 8 p.m. while my daughter's party is at 1 p.m. People can do both. But almost everyone on my mom's side RSVP'd no to her birthday party because of the wedding and travel. Even my own mother said she can't make it because she will be at stepsister's wedding and getting ready all day. I'm angry at how she can choose a stepdaughter over her own grandchild. Everyone is picking this girl who isn't even really family over my daughter. My mom says to just change the party, but I think it's ridiculous they can't do both. And I won't change my schedule for my stepsister. And my daughter will be the one to suffer when only one of her family's at her first birthday party. Now for the comments. I'm really hoping this comment stays up so everyone can read how truly heinous this goes. Beyond she stole my mommy high school stunted growth vibes. Here's OP's comment since OP seems to have deleted it after downvotes. She is taking on the mother role in the wedding since stepsister's mother died giving birth to her, which I'm also not happy about. Stepsister's mom died in childbirth, and OP's annoyed that her mom decided to be a mom to a kid who lost her one mom. For Pete's sake, you're the a-hole. Upvoting because this comment shows the depth of her resentment for no actual reason other than her own crap. This shows resentment at her mother. I'm wondering how the mom introduced the stepsister to the OP. What did she do to foster a relationship between them? If she constantly put her stepsister ahead of her own child, I can understand the resentment. She is still the a-hole, but I can understand why. She must have, if OP was still a kid and ended up at her father's full-time. Just because mom did the right thing by stepsister does not mean she did the right thing by her own daughter. That being said, a birthday party can be changed or a second one thrown on a different day. I usually throw 2 parties for my kids, a family one and a friends one. The friends party becomes the kids' friends party when they're older, and my friends go to either family or friends party at that point. It's also because my in-laws have a difficult schedule. Not necessarily. OP could very well be an only child and loved having her parents' full attention. When another kid is in the mix, that attention becomes split. And of course, OP wouldn't like that. All she said was her mom treated stepsister like another daughter, not like her only daughter. And I have no doubt if mom treated stepdaughter as the golden child who could do no wrong, OP would be screaming that fact from the rafters. You're the a-hole. You know, we know it, everyone knows it. People aren't simply going to do both events. Very few people are going to want to come to a 1-year-old's birthday party than go to an adult wedding. You knew about the conflict and went ahead with it anyway, despite the fact that moving it would not affect your child in any way. You're trying to play the victim here, when this is all under your control. Please seek therapy. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing my father access to my dying mother, denying him closure? My parents were separated for decades but continued to attack one another verbally through their friends and acquaintances, often putting me and my siblings in the middle of their ongoing feud. As the eldest, I was often the one most caught in the middle. My parents pretended to be no contact with each other when they weren't fighting via their lawyers, but each other would often contact me to just trash the other and then expect me to deliver their toxic messages to the other person. This went on for many, many years. It was exhausting. Periodically, I would lose it and go no contact with one or the other of them, but eventually I'd relent, get back in touch, because they needed my help with some practical matter or because I wanted my children to have some kind of relationship with their grandparents, and the cycle would continue. My mother recently became very ill and went downhill quickly. I took her into my home and was her caregiver until she died. Until the end, she was very angry with my father, and she explicitly told me she never wanted to see him or speak to him. She became very agitated at the thought that he might visit her and made me promise that I would not discuss her illness with him or permit him to see her if he tried to visit. In spite of my best efforts to keep my mother's illness a secret as I had promised my mother, my father eventually learned through some mutual acquaintances that she was dying. He then contacted me, demanding that I allow him to visit her so that he could achieve closure before she passed away. I explained that she did not want to see or speak to him, and that I needed to honor her dying wish. He became furious with me and started yelling and insisting that a final meeting between the two of them was the right thing to do, and that I was a bad person and a bad daughter for standing in the way. I told my father that my mother's death was not about him, that I was sorry he would not be able to achieve the closure he wanted, but that I would not be allowing him to come into my home to upset my mother in her dying days. In my mind, it was not my decision to make. It was my mother's alone. My only job was to keep her as comfortable and peaceful as I could. My mother passed away a few days later. My father never achieved the closure he wanted. He is still angry with me for not persuading or forcing my mother to see him when she was dying. I think if he had wanted closure, he had decades to work it out with her before she became ill. Am I the a-hole? Based on what you say, not the a-hole. Also, your father's anger is very telling. It was never about your mother for him. Even his closure is all about him. Good for you that you honored your mom's wish and prevented yet another drama. My suspicion is that he wanted to have one last dig at her when she was in such a vulnerable position and couldn't fight back. Yeah, nowhere did he seem to indicate that he wanted to make amends and apologize, just that he needed closure. He always had the option of writing a letter and giving it to OP, who could then read it to make sure it actually was an apology and that there weren't any insults in it, which she could then give the option to her mother of reading. Not the a-hole. Did your father want closure or did he want to have the final say? Because it sounds like the latter. You used words like persuade and force, which are aggressive words for someone looking for closure. You protected your mom, and that's all that matters here. At the time when my father was calling me about this, I was feeling very overwhelmed with caring for my mother. I probably didn't hear or process what he was saying very well. Looking back now, I don't even remember the exact words he used, except he kept saying that this was his last chance for closure. I read how commenters are saying he just wanted to have the last word, and in a way, I think they're right. That's his personality. Even if he apologized to my mother for all the years of fighting, he would have found a way to twist the knife a little bit too. And besides, he could offer the most perfect apology and it wouldn't change the fact that my mother didn't want to see him. Period. Not the a-hole. Good for you for keeping her wishes. I personally would not allow him to the funeral either. He should not be putting his failures on you and insulting you when you are, I assume, grieving. P.S. Sorry for your loss. Thank you. It was a rough relationship in many ways, but I did love my mother. I'm glad in the end that I was able to show her that. I think she felt it. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I hope she never has kids? I'm 22, female. I have 3-year-old twin boys that I had a baby girl not even 2 days ago. My sister Jody is 34 and has been suffering with infertility for the past 10 years as well as repeated miscarriages. I used to feel really bad for her and also a bit guilty as I got pregnant twice while being on contraception. It caused some tension between us when I was pregnant with my twins because she was jealous, and I was already feeling intense guilt. This time around, she wasn't as jealous, but I still felt it was unfair. As my husband and I have decided we are done having kids, I offered to be a surrogate for my sister as soon as I'm cleared after this baby, and she seemed like she was absolutely over the moon with that. In turn, she offered to watch the twins while I was in labor with my new baby, which was a relief on my part. I went into labor on Thursday morning and Jody came over to watch the kids while my husband and I went to the hospital. She seemed like she was in a great mood and promptly rushed us out the door. Everything seemed fine until we got home this morning to find thousands worth of destruction to pretty much every baby item we've purchased. Even the crib mattress was torn open. Everything was ruined. Jody tried to pin it on the twins, but they're 3, and this level of destruction had to have been done by an adult. My twins can't even reach some of the stuff that was destroyed, and they certainly do not know how to open diaper packages and tear them apart. I know kids, especially toddlers, can do a lot of damage in a short time, but I also know my children aren't capable of doing what happened. I told my sister to get the heck out of my home and stay away from me and my family. I got really angry, and I said a lot of stuff I shouldn't have, but one of them was, I hope you never have a child, and if you do, then I'll tell it exactly what you've done to mine. I told her we can't afford to fix the damages caused, but since she still denies it and she won't cough up, I told her because of her the baby doesn't even have a safe space to sleep. My parents caught wind of what I said, and even after I explained the situation, they still think I'm being an a-hole for saying something so vile to my sister after all she's done for us. Obviously, my judgment is clouded, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Info. Can you tell us more about the damage and why it had to have been done by an adult? Not the a-hole, by the way. Even if it was the toddlers, she should have prevented them, obviously. But I'm just flabbergasted that an adult woman would do this after you offered such a generous favor. A lot of the damage was beyond what my toddlers can do. For a start, the baby monitor was taken off the wall, and to get to that, my husband needed a step ladder. No chair in the world would have made them tall enough to reach it. I mentioned in another comment the entire crib was smashed and mattress cut up. My boys can climb out of cribs, but they cannot climb in. So there's no way they could have gotten the mattress out, and if they did, there's no way it could have gotten cut up. There was also a child-proof handle on the door, and I've tested them countless times and boys don't know how to open it yet. So unless the door was open for them, they couldn't have gotten in. A picture painted for us framed on the wall, again out of reach of the boys. It was smashed. And since they're barefoot 100% of the time at home, one or both would have gotten cut, but neither of them have a scratch anywhere on their body. Lastly, both boys denied it, and I believe them. Not today, Hall. Your sister flew into a jealous rage when faced with all the things she wants and doesn't have. Can you imagine how terrifying that was for your twins? Those poor babies. OP, you need to file a police report for destruction of property and maybe even contact CPS. Your sister is unwell and should not be allowed to provide care to children. You didn't know, but now you do. Never let your sister anywhere near you or your children. Your sister needs mental health services and she's not going to get them if your parents rather pass the blame on to you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister the truth about why I moved out the day I turned 18? When I'm 23 female was 10 years old, my parents divorced. My dad was so mean in the way he spoke to my mom. He always made her do all the housework and difficult parenting, but would swoop in to be the fun parent and apologize to my siblings to die for her behavior. If I'm honest, for a while I believed all the things he said about my mom, and I hated her for years. I still feel so guilty about it too. My dad's friend was my mother's boss at the time of their separation. I don't know if my dad got mom fired, but I assume he did because she lost her job the day after she left him. He made more money than she did. His name was on the house, and he knew she didn't have the resources to dispute him in court for very long. So he drew the process out for as long as possible until my mom ended up homeless and living in her car. She lost custody of all three of us and had to move to another state to stay with her sister because she couldn't find work here without an address. He cut her off from us and we didn't talk for years. As soon as my mom was gone, my dad began treating me the way he had treated her. It was a total switch from the man I'd grown up with. All of a sudden, it was like he hated me. It took that total 180-degree for me to realize what had happened between him and my mom. I pieced together everything over the next few years, went through some documents from the divorce that confirmed what I suspected. And by the time I was 16, I started saving money to move out as soon as possible. And at midnight on my 18th, I took my things and left. I later reconnected with my mom too. I've done pretty well for myself after leaving. I have a job, an apartment, a baby. I'm happy with my life. My sister contacted me a few days ago. She just turned 18 and she wanted to see me. We met at a park and talked for a while. When she asked me why I left, I tried to lie and come up with better answers, but she kept pressing, so I told her the truth. All of it, not sparing the details. She didn't respond well to it. She told me our dad would have never done those things, that our mom was the problem. She said she didn't believe me about any of it and then she stormed off. I told our mom what happened and she said that I shouldn't have told my sister at all. She thinks that it wasn't fair of me to shatter her reality like that because she's just a kid and our dad is still her hero. I know what it's like to have that reality-shattering moment and it sucks. But I mean, she asked for the truth. Was I wrong to give it to her? Not today, Hall. She insisted that you tell her the real reason why you left. She's technically an adult. She should have expected the answer to be unpleasant because why would you have left the minute you could otherwise? From what I understand, my dad told her and my younger brother that he and I had a disagreement about something, and the whole thing was just a big misunderstanding. So she wasn't really expecting my actual answer at all. And she just believed that an 18-year-old would leave home because of a simple misunderstanding? Why would her dad, who she thinks is a hero, allow a simple misunderstanding to permanently damage his relationship with his daughter? Honestly, I don't blame her if that's what she really believed. He's incredibly manipulative. There was definitely a time in my life where if he had told me the sky was green, I would have listened. Trying to question him about anything would result in him making you feel like you were the crazy one. He more than likely framed the whole thing as me being unwilling and unreasonable, and him being the ever-doting father who was heartbroken by me abandoning them and leaving. Not the Hall. It sucks, but you told an 18-year-old, not a 5-year-old. As long as you said factual things that you could share, you did nothing wrong. Your mother is wrong, but not an a-hole. I imagine what she went through is traumatic and probably colors how you should handle things. By the way, I understand and appreciate why you feel guilt for believing your father. However, for what it's worth, you were an actual kid being manipulated by your father. That doesn't make things better for how your mother might feel, but it wasn't your fault. Thank you. My mom has said she doesn't blame me for being manipulated by him and that she understands why I felt the way I did towards her. I know rationally that I was only a kid and I didn't know the truth, so it couldn't have been my fault. But as an adult now, it's still hard to accept and remember that sometimes. I'm sure I'll get to that point eventually though. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my husband after I found that he was hiding my son's motorcycle? I got my son a 7K motorcycle for his 18th birthday this past June. My son is obsessed with automobiles and loves motorcycles. In his room, he has plenty of models and posters of motorcycles of all types. His bio-dad passed away when he was just 12, and now I'm married to my current husband and he has kids of his own. My husband has always been against my son's interest in motorcycles. He thinks I'm encouraging him to be reckless, distracting him from school, and by extension his future, and spoiling him and blowing away money by spending 7K on a motorcycle. This caused some tension between him and my son, so I told him to stop complaining about it. Around 2 weeks ago, my son's motorcycle went missing. We opened a police report, but nothing came out of it. It just disappeared. My husband had a smirk on his face the entire time, just walking around saying, "I told you so. You just wasted your money." This was unbearable to hear, to be quite honest. My mother-in-law visited a few days ago. She was talking about the other house my husband owns and mentioned seeing a motorcycle, one that's similar to the one that we lost in my husband's garage while she was cleaning it. She goes to clean that house weekly even though it's empty, as my husband plans on giving it to his kids as inheritance. I was puzzled, so I asked if she was certain, but she showed me a photo she took of it which confirmed that it was indeed my son's motorcycle. I immediately rushed to call my husband and confront him about it. He admitted that he took and hid a motorcycle in his garage as a last resort, after me and his stepson kept brushing him and his thoughts off about the 7K being spent on something unnecessary, and that could cause issues. I blew up at him demanding he return it, but he refused, and told me he had been considering selling it and giving the money back to me so I could use it wisely this time. I told him I was serious and that I'd call the police. He literally said, "This is a family matter and cops can't do anything about it." I had enough, so I called the cops as soon as I ended the call with him. The motorcycle was found and returned, but my husband had to be taken in since there was an open file about the motorcycle going missing. He was let go eventually, but he was livid with me. He came home yelling about how awful what I did was, and how crazy my behavior was. I refused to engage in the argument, but he told his entire family about it, and they judged me for calling the police on my own husband, even though I already asked him to return it. He said he was just looking out for my son, and that one day we'll realize that he was right, but only when it's too late. My son isn't speaking to me or my husband. I feel horrible about the whole situation, and I'm starting to think I handled this the wrong way. Now for the top comments. Not Day Hall. The debate about whether a motorcycle is a good gift for an 18-year-old is irrelevant. Completely. Red herring. Ignore any responses based on this. Your husband stole an item and hid it, then allowed you to go to the police about it, smugly knowing they wouldn't turn up anything, and lied to you either overtly or by omission about it. When confronted, he doubled down. No remorse, no contrition. You were right to call him out. You were right to involve the police when he threatened to sell it against your wishes. And my recommendation would be to begin divorce proceedings, because this man does not have any respect for you whatsoever. He's already proven he will commit crimes and file false police reports in order to get his way. This is a your son or your husband situation. Please choose your child. I also think it's highly telling his family thinks someone shouldn't go to the police if it's something their husband did. It's apologism and one step away from saying you shouldn't press charges if he hits you. Be careful with him. He's been proven to want to cause you and your son harm for the sake of knowing better than you. I'm not sure if I'd even call it a choice between the husband and the son. It's a choice between being able to make your own decisions or becoming a servant to the pompous creature you're married to. Get out! Not Day Hall. Once you gave the motorcycle to your son, it became your son's property and not the property of your husband's to take. Additionally, taking it and hiding it like that and not coping to it after you filed a police report is really horrible. He literally stole the motorcycle. I would seriously rethink staying married to him. Who the heck does he think he is to teach a lesson in that way? Oh, and yeah, you did the right thing calling the police on him. Maybe next time he will rethink doing something so stupid. I'm trying to also figure out stepdad's logic with this, because once the police report was made, it's on record with a plate and VIN. Anyone it tried selling to may look it up for issues or get caught with it later. It will come back to stepdad eventually. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for walking my sister down the aisle when our mother's husband believed he would be the one to do it? My sister got married on Saturday. He asked me several months ago to walk her down the aisle and to have a dance to honor our dad. I said, of course. Our Our dad died when I was 11 and she was 7, and we both have memories of him, and she wanted to honor him and feel connected to him all the day and saw me as the best person for the job. So, I walked her to her husband and danced to the song our dad used to sing to us. Our mother remarried before our dad was a year gone. Her husband has no children and was unable to have kids of his own. So he made a big attempt to take over our dad's place and be regarded as dad, which he wasn't. Despite knowing this and never being asked, he assumed he would be fulfilling father of the bride duties at my sister's wedding. And on the day he learned it was me she asked, he was visibly upset. I had an idea he was expecting it, but said nothing. Neither did she. At the reception, he confronted me and asked why I would do it when he's right there, and how was I more deserving than him, her father figure. I told him it was my sister's choice, and she wanted me so we could honor our dad. He told me he deserved better than to be completely ignored in the wedding, and treated like he was not a parent and not part of our family for the last 15 years. I shrugged, which angered him even more. He and my mom are both furious at me for saying yes when I knew he wanted to do it. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Why are they even blaming you? It's your sister's wedding and her choice. I'm not suggesting she's an a-hole for asking you to do it at all, but it was her decision. All you did was agree to it. Just a wild guess, but they might have thought that Opie saying no would mean mom's husband should have been asked. People like that will always look for someone to blame. My mother always wanted to walk me down the aisle and always said no, that it would be my dad. Divorced since I was 6. The day my dad died last year and my little brother and I realized he would never see us married, I was getting married in November. Bro was 25, 11 years younger and my stepmom's and dad's child. So he offered to walk me to represent our father. It was a very special moment between the two of us. When I was planning the wedding, my mom jumped up and down clapping and happy squealing, saying, "Yes, your dad's dead. Now I can walk you down the aisle." She stopped talking to me for 3 months when I told her. It was all about how I didn't respect her. Should have had her even when he was alive. Her. We eloped and my brother was there by my side. You cannot demand a position in someone's life or wedding. It has to be earned. Opie's parents are just looking at someone to blame and take it out on. Not the a-hole. He doesn't understand that he may be your mom's husband, but he isn't your dad. I also didn't like that stepdad credits himself for being Opie's dad for 15 years, when Opie and sister lost their bio father at 11 and 7. Opie was an adult 7 years later or 6 years after their mom remarried. But stepdad continues to count so he can get more credit than the father that raised the kids from infancy. Those are pretty formative years. In addition to that, many people don't stop needing or getting support from their parents at 18. Dude's not asking for more credit than their bio dad. He's just saying he did his best to step in and fill the role. Over that 15 years, we have no idea how much support and whatnot he's provided for them. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room? I was in labor for 26 hours and was in a lot of pain as I didn't take an epidural. My husband was constantly on the phone, either playing games or talking with his bros, being really loud. When I asked him to please hang up, he'd hang up the phone and then like 10 minutes later, call them back. He really wanted to talk to them because his friends went on a boys' trip without him, because I asked him to stay back so he could be here when I went into labor. They were calling to tell him about how their trip was going. He apologized to them, blaming it on me being a nag. I was really annoyed and told him if he wanted to talk to his friend, he could do that elsewhere so I can be in pain and peace. He was like, "Alright, fine baby, I'll just call them back later." So I had about 20 minutes of peace until his mom FaceTimed him where he proceeded to put me in a video call. His mom then makes a comment about how she remembers when she was in labor with him and that she still did herself up. She even claimed she looked so good that a doctor was even flirting with her. I was holding back everything inside me to not say something, as I didn't want to disrespect my mother-in-law. But at the same time, she sometimes just makes the stupidest comments at worst times, and at this moment, I could not stand talking to her. A nurse ends up coming in and could tell I was upset and asks me if everything was alright, and I tell her I just really want to be alone. She ends up kicking out my husband, and in turn he ends up missing the birth of our firstborn daughter, because he left the hospital as he was angry that I got the nurse to kick him out the room. He refused to come see his daughter afterwards because he was angry at me for kicking him out. My mother-in-law, who did visit me in the hospital, wouldn't stop talking about how I'm such a bad wife for removing my husband from the room. When I got home, he kept on bringing up how I ruined a moment of bonding with his daughter, and how he could never forgive me for that. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out the delivery room because he was making phone calls? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. That's a whole lot of red flags from your husband. 1. Had to be told not to leave on boys' holiday when his wife would likely be giving birth to his child. 2. Ignored his laboring wife to chat with his friends on his said trip. 3. Called them back after being told to hang up. 4. Answered a video chat from someone you didn't want in the room. 5. Allowed that person to be disrespectful towards you. 6. Went off in a sulk instead of visiting you and his child as soon as he was allowed back in. If he has a problem with the situation, you could ask him what he was feeling the last time he had a new person escaping from his vagina, so you can compare notes and come up with a compromise. 100% all of this. The deflection makes me angry for her. She needed her husband and he acted like a child. Childbirth is nothing to joke about. Women die in childbirth and it's painful. Definitely not the a-hole, but having to tell a grown man how to act isn't something you want to be doing while in labor. Absolutely. Maybe I'm just always looking for an out, but I would have filed divorce the second I left the hospital with that behavior. I absolutely love and adore my partner, and he is literally only green flags. I'm pregnant, and if he did even one of the things on this list while I was actively in labor, I would get my friends to pack my things and never come home to him. This is disgusting behavior. Not the a-hole. The nurse kicked him out of the room. He's the one that chose to leave the hospital altogether. Tell him you missed the birth of your daughter because you threw a temper tantrum and left the hospital. If you had been focused on me and the baby instead of playing games and having loud phone calls with your friends, I never would have asked you to leave the room. You're mad that you missed this moment? Well, I am mad that when your daughter and I needed you most, you prioritized chatting with your friends and complaining about what a nag I am. I am mad that when I was in an incredibly vulnerable position, you let your mom insult me. I am mad that you're blaming me for something that was the consequences of your own selfish actions. I am mad that you're still making the situation about yourself and playing the victim instead of celebrating that I gave birth to our daughter. I'd copy and paste that into a message to him, because that's exactly what happened. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for paying first-class airfare for my nanny and not my son? Me and my husband had our first child, Matt, 18 male, when we were just 17 years old. We weren't in a very good financial situation at first, and it only got better when Matt was 9. Currently, we both work well-paying jobs, bought a spacious home, and have our luxuries. We had 2 more children, 8 male and 5 female. As we cannot stay at home all the time, we hired a nanny, a 45 female, to take care of the little ones. Matt had a complicated personality change at age 11. We put him in a private school, and maybe the contact with other teenagers brought out a selfish and elitist side of him. We tried our best to try to improve it, but with the onset of adolescence and stubbornness, it just seemed to get worse. It got better when my husband and I decided that at age 16, he would work part-time so he could start taking financial responsibility, and that seemed to give him a reality check as we cut our support on his perks. This year, after the worst period of the pandemic, my husband and I decided to go on an international trip. And instead of giving May a vacation at home, we decided that we would take her, not going to work, and pay for everything. I don't live in the US. Matt, on a random day, overheard me talking to my husband that I was planning to pay for a first-class seat for May and her son, for her to enjoy like we did. Matt then asked why we should do this. We were already paying for everything. Let her go economy class if she can't afford first class. I was shocked. I said that it was mean to say this, and that she was an important person for our family who gives up having time for her own child to take care of mine. It's the least I can do. He still stood his ground. So I said if he sees it that way, I said I'd buy him an economy seat and he'd have to turn around to pay for an upgrade, for him to see how privileged he is to have parents who can pay. He nodded, thinking it was a joke, even though I said it wasn't. As the months went by, I warned him that his ticket was economy, and he didn't believe it. On the day of the trip, like a shocked Pikachu, he was startled when he realized I told the truth. He threw a tantrum in the middle of the airport, saying that 10 hours of travel would be very uncomfortable. I just replied, "You had 6 months together. You've been warned." The flight was okay, but Matt was outraged the entire trip, saying it was almost torture and that we had gone too far. My husband agrees with me, but my parents said I went too far doing this. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He fooled around and found out. Doesn't sound like those elitist attitudes really left. Just simmered for a while. My parents said I went too far doing this. Yes, you absolutely tortured him by making him sit with a peasant. How awful. Exactly. He's lucky she still took him on vacation at all. Imagine what the flight would have been like with him whining in a nearby seat. Not the a-hole, and I'm sorry you have such an entitled son. Ask him why almost torture would be fine for the nanny but not for him. Because that wouldn't work with someone like this. My husband's 39, younger brother 28, has never had a job that lasted more than 3 months until he started doing DoorDash and skipped the dishes because he didn't want to be told what to do. In his mind, having anyone physically watch what you do was unacceptable. You bet he would completely freak if he was in this situation. Asking why it is okay for them and not him would have the response of, they are to help. We pay them. They aren't owed anything. Entitlement is a terrible thing. Not the a-hole. Matt can't tell you what to do with your money, and is plain mean and classist to negotiate a downgrade in airfare for anyone. However, you have already tried taking privileges away by making him work and not supporting his perks. I don't think monetary punishment is going to work anymore. You need a new solution. I would try a family therapist to see what is at the bottom of his relationship with money and what you can do to change it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to punish my daughter for being rude to her grandmother and clapping back at mother-in-law? No one in the family likes mother-in-law's husband for a couple of reasons. He works in an immoral industry and admits he will do anything for money. He is very pompous/competitive and likes to take digs about everyone's financial situations. He was a lazy parent to his own children and a cold and jealous stepfather to his stepchildren. Really, mother-in-law is the only person who likes him. She gets an entirely different side of him, but at the same time, I feel she can't just ignore who he is. My 13-year-old daughter is a very smart and intelligent girl and has decided to be no contact with him. We fully support her and she no longer attends family events. Recently, we went out in a group for someone's birthday. Just the women, so he was not there or she would not have gone, and we saw the musical Hadestown. After the musical, we grabbed dinner and my daughter was talking about how the kids in her theater group are obsessed with it, and she feels they romanticize a toxic relationship in the two of the main characters, Hades and Persephone, and Hades should be viewed strictly as a villain. Mother-in-law said, "It's honestly the best feeling though when someone hates everyone but you. It's so cute." My daughter replied, "Well, that isn't surprising, as we've all seen the a-hole you married." Mother-in-law laughed and said, "If you were my kid, you'd be in so much trouble right now," and looked at me like she expected me to say something. I replied that I don't believe in punishing for every little thing, and my daughter was expressing her opinion. I said that mother-in-law said something which offended my daughter, so my daughter responded, and there would be no punishment. I also said that I try not to come from a place of authoritarian parenting. Mother-in-law said I clearly got whatever I wanted, and that is why my daughter is so annoying to be around. I replied that mother-in-law was reactive and controlling with her own kids, and now they all hate her. Mother-in-law was furious, and now the family is pretty divided. My husband is actually on his mom's side, which surprised me because he usually isn't. Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. Mother-in-law gave an opinion your daughter did not like. She did not attack your daughter. Rather than replying with evidence justifying her opinion, your daughter chose to use a personal attack. Your daughter was unnecessarily unkind to mother-in-law. Mother-in-law's response to your lack of action was inappropriate on her part. But your response was just as bad, if not worse. Personal attacks are not okay. Everyone here acted inappropriately. The mother-in-law made a ridiculous remark and got the full brunt of teenaged no a-holes barred, no BS, and she deserved very little bit of it. Mother-in-law said something your daughter disagreed with. Your daughter responded by calling her husband an a-hole, and then it spiraled into the realm of ridiculous from there. This is the stuff divorces are made of. I feel sorry for your husband. Everyone sucks here. It's not something the daughter disagrees with. It's mother-in-law admitting to her family that she likes how her husband treats them like trash. Mother-in-law gets off on inflicting her awful husband on everyone else because she needs to feel like a queen. She deserves to be slammed down for that. She's not just staying in the relationship because he's lovely to her. She actively likes how he treats everyone else like crap. Why should they all just ignore that? You're the a-hole. That was extremely rude and unprovoked. Grandma didn't even insult or say anything bad to your daughter. She was talking about a common romance trope. and your daughter made it about her grandma's relationship. It's okay for her to want no contact with her grandfather, but blatantly insulting her grandmother for being married to him is not okay. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend to stop acting entitled on her period? I, 28 male, have been with my girlfriend, 26 female, for 3 years now. We have a great relationship aside from this one issue, but the issue has gotten to the point where I think it might be a deal breaker. She's always been a little moody on her period, but it was a lot less intense at the beginning of our relationship. In the past year, it's become unbearable. When my girlfriend is on her period, she becomes a totally different person. She won't go to work nor do chores. She lays in bed for 7 to 10 days and expects me to do everything for her. I work 10-hour days, and she demands I cook for her and clean the house as soon as I get home. She will leave a bloody mess in the bedroom and bathroom and demand I clean it. Now, the worst part isn't her staying in bed or making me do all the chores. I could probably handle that on its own. The worst part is her attitude. She becomes extremely mean and will insult me for the entire week. She has made me cry before due to how awful she gets. Nothing I do is up to her standards. If I don't do what she asks as soon as she asks it, she throws what I can only describe as a tantrum. She will scream, cry, and has even thrown things at me. She has lost jobs due to her trying to take 7 to 10 days off a month. If they don't approve her time off, she either quits or just doesn't show up, which leads to her getting fired. Thankfully, she's found a more flexible job, but her taking so much unpaid time off is causing us to struggle financially. At first, I was extremely concerned that it was a health issue and urged her to go to her doctor. However, she refused. After almost a year of begging her to go to the doctor, I have given up because I can't force her to go. And she gets extremely angry when I mention it, saying I'm selfish and don't want to take care of her. It causes me a lot of emotional distress because I know something is probably seriously wrong, but I can't force her to go get it checked. She's even gotten her family involved to get me to stop nagging her to go to the doctor. Today, she somehow bled all over the toilet seat and just left it for me to clean, which I did. I was exhausted from work and said I didn't want to cook and will order takeout. She started to insult me, even mentioning some trauma from my past just to hurt me. I lost my cool and told her she needs to stop being a massive entitled jerk to me and that her period is not an excuse to act like this. She screamed and started throwing stuff at me, and I ended up going to stay with my parents. I have tried so hard to be understanding and to support her, but I can't take this anymore. She has her family messaging me and calling me an a-hole, and I do feel bad because I do think she's in pain, and it's likely a medical issue. But on the other hand, what am I supposed to do if she won't go to the doctor? Am I the a-hole? Anti-A, anti-A, anti-A. She is abusive and using her period to justify it. No, she doesn't get away with that just because she has a genital that bleeds. You're right that you can't control her behavior and force her to see a doctor if she refuses. But then please control your behavior and leave her. She's mistreating you and is refusing any kind of help or opportunity to change. You do not deserve to stay stuck with a person like that. You deserve to be with someone who loves you and doesn't use excuses to mistreat you. Thank you for your perspective. It's definitely a hard pill to swallow. It really hurts because she only acts like this during her period, which to me proves that it's almost definitely a health issue. Maybe a hormonal imbalance? Usually she's so sweet and patient, but these few days each month are awful. I just want her to go to the doctor. Her period isn't an excuse for any of this, particularly as she hasn't acknowledged she needs to consult a doctor and likely a psychiatrist for her situation. OP, I hate to pull the usual dump him card, but at the very least move out for now. This is neither normal nor acceptable. Maybe she will seek help if she has to clean up her own messes and she manages to alienate enough people. Not the a-hole. Her intense mood change, excessive bleeding, and a period that lasts 7 to 10 days is alarming. She seriously needs to seek medical help for her own good. However, you're not the a-hole and you have every right to demand that she seeks help or leave. Thank you. I am very concerned and have been since I noticed how bad her periods had gotten. I have pleaded with her to please go to the doctor, but she's very stubborn and says there was nothing abnormal with her health. Her parents have also gotten involved and said it's abusive for me to pressure her so much when she's already said no. I feel backed into a corner here. Other than when she's on her period, she's wonderful. I love her very much, but I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do anymore. Am I the a-hole for blindsiding my landlord with a 1-month notice after they blindsided me with a 3-month notice? I know you probably read that and thought, huh? How can you be blindsided with a 3-month notice? Allow me to explain. Me and my wife were renting and had agreed to a month-to-month lease. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a lease that may be altered or terminated by either party as long as proper notice is given to change or end the lease. Our contract stated that 30 days notice was required from both parties. We got along with the landlords great and lived there for about a year and a half. We never made a late payment. We would often have dinner together, and there was a mutual like for one another. After some time, they began telling us that even though it's a month-to-month lease, they wanted to continue this arrangement long-term. They gave us the whole, "We love having you here, and we want this to be a long-term thing." We felt reassured by that and stopped being so on edge all the time. We stopped worrying about them kicking us to the curb. We figured we could stay there for years, and we were happy about that. That is what they filled our heads up with, that we are secure. We were finally at peace. Then, one day, my landlord comes up to us and explains that, unfortunately, we will need to leave in 3 months because the space we were occupying was going to be converted for a family member that was going to move in. We felt a little betrayed and lied to. However, we understood that is what we agreed to, and we should have never relied on their word to begin with. He kept telling us, "I gave you all 3 months notice instead of 1 because we really respect and appreciate you guys. I'm doing y'all a favor. That shows we really care." Half of me agrees, but the other half was like, "You're still a prick." That same night, me and my wife began apartment hunting. Luck was on our side because we found a better apartment with more space at around the same price as our current apartment. We put in the application and got accepted 1 week later. We signed all the paperwork and were given a move-in date. The time came to tell our landlords. We told them we had found a new place and wanted to activate our 30 days notice. We thanked them for everything, the same stuff they fed us. We let them know that after being told we had to leave in 3 months, it was in our best interest to find a new apartment sooner, and so we did. We didn't want to wait too long to start looking and end up homeless after the 3 months. They went off on me and my wife, telling us we can't do that and that they would take us to court. They were yelling personal insults to us and the police were called. Am I crazy for not believing that we did something wrong? Now for the top comments. Our contract stated that 30 days notice was required from both parties. This is all we needed to know, and the only real thing that matters here. You're abiding by the contract that both you and your landlord signed. You're not the a-hole. Opie wouldn't be the a-hole to abide strictly by the contract regardless, but it also doesn't sound like they sat on notice maliciously. They found a place to move and let them know. Landlord wants the extra months of rent. Too bad. Totally agree. Opie was weirdly hung up on the 3 months notice thing. Like that actually was very kind of the landlord, because it puts them in the exact position they ended up in, missing out on 2 months rent. It wouldn't be a kindness if they weren't sacrificing anything. If the landlord really wanted you there longer term, Opie, they would have switched you to another lease. The landlord is unequivocally the a-hole for getting mad that Opie basically responded to the gesture of kindness with, "Okay, I accept, and will use that extra time accordingly." They clearly just wanted the credit of doing a nice thing without actually doing anything meaningful. But Opie, the whole only 3 months notice after saying how much they liked us but never moving us to a longer-term lease angle isn't as sympathetic as you seem to think it is. Neither of you did anything wrong until they got mad. I was going to say no a-holes here, as they can ask you to leave regardless of what they said before, and you can tell them you're leaving, right up until the point they freaked out. I'm betting they were counting on those 2 months of rent to help pay for the modification to the space for the family member. Not the a-hole and take photos of everything before you leave. If they freak out now, they could freak out about damage and keep your security deposit. Opie, buy a newspaper that morning and put that front of the newspaper in the pictures. It's a way of date stamping them so they can't claim the pictures were from the move-in date. And take pictures of everything. They're definitely gonna treat that security deposit as a bonus month's rent. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling the new neighbors that they got what they paid for, including being shunned by the neighborhood? Where I live, real estate developers have started snatching up family homes, bulldozing them, and building enormous $2 million houses on the plots of land. The houses also stick out horribly in terms of aesthetics. Think single-level brick homes with a 3-level gigantic white and black box in the middle. My home's been in my family for several generations. We have always been known for having a large, beautiful garden. We invited over kids to help with gardening. We gave away so many veggies. We'd hold parties, etc. It's been a neighborhood treasure for years. Until developers snatched up the lot next door, bulldozed and erected an enormous house that blocks out the light to most of the garden. Many of us tried to fight it with the city, but everything was denied. It was heartbreaking. Our neighborhood has been changed forever. This was a link to my family, and I almost have to go through a grieving process for it. The new owners moved in and were not welcomed warmly by people in the neighborhood. I avoided them for as long as I could, other than politely waving or nodding. It was a young couple in their early 20s. We finally came face to face, and the woman asked if we could chat. She said that they felt like maybe they'd done something wrong when they moved in, or if they aren't pulling in their trash bins or something, being too loud, etc., because people haven't been very friendly. The guy says that he is surprised considering it felt like a nice and somewhat affluent neighborhood, and given the price, he was expecting friendly neighbors. I asked if they had done any research about the area. They said that they moved from California, so no. I said that maybe that was their mistake. They said they didn't know what I meant. So I asked if they'd ever looked in our backyard. They said yes, and said they think the garden is cute. I said yes, the garden that now has about half less sunlight than before that house was built and was a neighborhood treasure. The guy said, well, it's not our fault you built the garden there, is it? And I said, well, you guys got what you paid for. $2 million for a house that everyone in the neighborhood hates. I said that I hoped it was worth it and wished them a nice day. When I told another neighbor about the exchange, she told me that she does feel bad for them moving without having any idea what they were getting themselves into. Am I the a-hole for telling them that they got what they paid for? So you unloaded your pent-up anger at the developers on a couple who unwittingly bought the house? You're the a-hole. That couple did nothing wrong. They bought a house that was on the market. Now, if they had been the ones to buy the house/land from the previous owner, bulldoze it down and then build their $1 million mansion, you might have a leg to stand on. But from what you say in the post, the neighborhood is taking out their frustration/anger on an innocent couple. Yeah, but I do get why he'd be angry if instead of, oh, we're sorry we didn't know about your garden, they decided to go with, it's not our fault you built your garden there. You're the a-hole. They just bought a house. Did you research the neighborhood? Is your garden a big thing so well known it's in papers? That people could know about it without having talks with the neighbors before moving in, and specific talks. And even then, they did not design the house. Just bought it. It is not their fault, and you are being angry at them as if it is. Even if they researched, it's not like the house being on the market or someone else buying the house would have changed the fact that the house existed. No matter who bought the house or if it sat empty, it was blocking the garden. You're the a-hole. I've seen a lot of NIMBY-type folks on here, but you take the cake today due to treating people like crap because they apparently stole your sunlight, and you were big mad about it. These people likely had no idea about your garden or what was there prior to the house they bought being there. It's not their fault the house was built there. You want to be mad? Be mad at the real estate developers. That's the actual bad guy here, not the people who bought the house. Okay, but people from places like California moving to places that are smaller and cheaper building houses like this really is messing up the market in some states. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I purposefully bought a smaller house so my mom can't come? My 34 female mom, 65, got divorced from my dad when I was 20. I had saved all my money for years and had been working 2 years at this point, and the economy crashed and houses were so much cheaper. My dad had remortgaged our house so much it was worthless, and the bank had to get it. I bought with co-ownership, so I paid a mortgage on half the house and rent on the other half a 3-bedroom house. Otherwise, my mom and 2 brothers, Josh 13 and Richard 18 at a time, would have been homeless. Since then, I have paid for everything and paid off her credit card debt twice, about £6,000, and I buy absolutely everything including food. For the past 3 years, she has become absolutely unbearable, commenting on everything I buy, and keeps saying, when I was your age, we didn't have money to waste on XYZ. It's my money and I work all the time. She will never give me peace, and working from home has just made it worse. Constantly nitpicking, asking the same questions over and over, starting arguments and then playing the victim. Richard is married now. And as always, everything revolves around him even though he has never done anything. So I said next year when she gets the state's pension and has loads more money, she's gone because she's starting arguments every other day with me and Josh. I told her that she can move in with Richard as he has a 4-bedroom house or find somewhere else to live because I no longer care. She keeps saying, what will people think? All she seems to care about is what other people think and not the hurt she caused all the time. So would I be the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but like just buy the size of house you and your husband want and tell her to pound sand. Thanks, though I don't have a husband because she's driven away anyone I've ever liked and complained, what would I do if you got married? Where would I live? To be honest, I want a house that Josh, youngest brother, can live in and that my 2 little nephews can stay a couple of nights a week. You do realize that she's keeping you single so you'll be her caregiver in her old age, right? Your brothers are there to give her grandchildren and you're there to cater to her every whim. Can't let you get a family of your own that you might prioritize over her now, can we? She's a grown adult who has been parasiting her child for over a decade. Kick her out now. She can fend for herself. Not the a-hole. You are completely right. I'm so sick of getting taken advantage of. I stand up to her and then she just wears me down. He won't take her. He told me in August that he doesn't want her. That doesn't mean you have to keep her. Go to Citizens Advice and they will tell you how to legally evict her because it's a process. But if she has proof that she's being formally asked to leave, then she will be helped by the council. You know, I never even thought of the Citizens Advice Bureau. I will give them a call tomorrow. Please update. You're empowered by these comments, and that's great. But I fear as soon as you get near your mother, you may cave because she's had 34 years of molding, brainwashing, and frankly, emotionally mistreating you, and that you'll return to old habits. Take care of yourself. Evict her, and it'll be on Richard to tell her to her face he doesn't care about her. Good luck no matter what. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling the cops on my neighbor and getting my sister in trouble? Background. I, 40 female, am unmarried. No kids. My sister, 45 female, is married with 3 kids and bought a house about 3 to 4 years ago in the super nice suburb of town. It's a great area. Lots of parks, trails, with a really good school system. I found and bought a house in the same neighborhood. I loved it for the size of the yards, great for my dogs. Love that I can now walk or jog to all the trails in the local lake. It is, however, very suburban, and most of the people here have families, making me a little bit of an outlier. I'm fine with that. I don't really care. I live in the house by myself. Neighbors have been nice, but most of them hang out with each other and have playdates with the kids. There are neighborhood barbecues that I have been to. So a week ago, I'm watching TV at home, around 9 p.m., and all of a sudden my dogs start going crazy. My doorbell rings multiple times, and then rapid knocking. I jump off my couch, look at my Ring doorbell, and it's a stranger, male, knocking on my door. I have no idea who he is, and he just keeps banging on my door. My dogs are freaking out, so I call the cops. He goes away after about 5 to 7 minutes. The cops show up 20 minutes later. I show them the video and they told me they know who it is, though wouldn't tell me, and then left. The next day, I get a phone call from my sister. She's super miffed that I called cops on Dave, and how could I do that in this community? I'm confused. Who is Dave? Oh, it's apparently the local neighborhood watch guy and school teacher, and he thought I was driving too fast down the street and wanted to talk to me. I was flabbergasted because 1, there's no way to drive fast in this neighborhood as there are stop signs everywhere. Cops everywhere. They have their own police force, and there are speed bumps every 2 blocks. 2, why didn't he call/text/email before knocking on the door at 9 p.m. on anyone's house, much less a single woman at home? But sister said that my reaction was totally over the top, and you don't live in the hood anymore. People visit other people. I stand by my right to be safe and not get harassed by the neighbor. But sister is angry because there was no danger whatsoever. And apparently, this was the discussion at the recent PTA meeting. And since I wasn't there, because why would I go to a PTA meeting? She was charged with defending me and now she looks bad by association. She also brought up that I walk my dogs without a bra on all the time. And that's just not good. WTF? She wants me to reach out to Dave and apologize and say that I am absolutely sorry for calling the cops and driving fast. She told me that I needed to play nice with the neighbors unless I wanted to be moving in a year. Maybe I did overreact, but I'm just so annoyed that I don't want to do anything related to that. And maybe that makes me the a-hole. Thoughts? Not the a-hole. What Dave did was highly inappropriate, and you being discussed at a PTA meeting was also inappropriate. Is this an HOA? Actually, no, there's no HOA. This is partially why I bought here. The PTA meetings apparently have just slowly become a neighborhood meeting because everyone is their guest, per my sister. There are a few other people here that don't have kids or aren't married, but I don't know what they do or care. If you care enough, approach the school board to alert them that PTA meetings are being exploited because non-school related issues are being discussed. These people need to get a life because this is a gossip club. The school board probably doesn't care. Communities like this are all ran by the same chuds, and nothing productive ever gets done. Just one big community circle jerk. I'm sorry. The moment the cops basically went, "Yep, we know who this guy is," you know they aren't a huge fan of him. If they thought Dave was this awesome, helpful guy, they would have gone, "Oh, it's Dave. He lives on Maple and does neighborhood watch." I imagine it was related to that, but we'll speak with him still. Instead it was, "Yeah, we know who it is." That's a, "we find this guy a bother." Because Dave is a wannabe cop and is in everyone's business. I bet this isn't the first time that Dave has overstepped his boundaries. Because he is bullying the neighbors to follow his rules. Sorry, I mean the neighborhood rules.